Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, evening, wherever, depending on wherever you're based. Welcome to our first discussion on climate justice, the journey to climate justice, and the role young people can play in the movement. My name is Kurtulen Tajani, and I am the one of the co-founders of the International Youth Conferences platform. I am also primarily a climate journalist. I am a graduate student at New York University as well, where I'm training to be a full-time journalist with climate and environment as my beat. And I recently also became a trained climate reality leader. We have two other people from climate reality here who would be introducing themselves shortly. And I am really, really glad and excited to be talking to this very diverse and amazing panel of scientists, of researchers, of activists, and sustainability professionals from different parts of the globe. And it's really, really great to be here. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists for today. All the people who are tuning in from different parts of the world, it would be great if you can mention your countries where you are joining in from in the comments. And if you have any questions from the panel, you can keep asking throughout, and we will try to answer them towards the end of the panel. Have also shared the attendance sheet. So if you want to mark yourself present for this session, you can do that. The link has been shared already in the comments or in the main description of the session. So our panelist introducing Dr. Miroslav Polz. He is the CEO and the executive director, founder and CEO of the International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges. He is also the strategic director and European Union lead of Climate Change Coalition. And he is a member of the ECOS community, which stands for Climate Education, Communication, and Outreach Stakeholders Community. Our second panelist is Kazaya Shirosano. Kazaya, you can help me with your pronunciation if I'm defaulting there. Kazaya is a 21-year-old climate advocate from Philippines, and she's the partnerships coordinator of the 16th UN Climate Change Conference of Youth. She's a politics student studying in New York City, and also the founder of Project Pusaka, which she will tell you about. She works with in the indigenous groups in the Philippines, and that is what her project is about. Suzanne Morel is an event planner and producer, where she focuses on planning events in a sustainable way. She is also on the board of Sustainable Event Alliance, and she was encouraged to apply for the Climate Reality Project training online, which she's a trained leader for. Kazaya and Suzanne both are trained climate reality leaders. Then we have two other speakers. We have Modu Chan. He joined ICF as a transportation and smart mobility specialist, and he has experience working with local, state, and international government representatives on sustainability, economic development, and environmental conservation initiatives. He has also worked with the World Information Transfer, where he was responsible for promoting environmental health and literacy. He has contributed to that, and a bunch of other projects before that, where his work surrounded global environment and its effects on human health. We have Kevin Luzalu from Kenya, who is also a climate journalist like myself, and he's also a young ecologist, researcher, and ocean campaigner. He has extensive experience and interest in working with young people at grassroots level, and his organization. He's the co-founder of the Kenyan Youth Biodiversity Network, an award-winning youth-led organization that seeks to actively engage young people at the grassroots level to raise their voice in enhanced sustainable action. Fellow panelists, you can add to your introduction after that, but I would also request you to please share what brings you to the fight for climate justice, why you are passionate about climate as a cause, and anything else that you would like to share about yourself. Whoever wants to start.
I guess ladies
Kevin?
first, so we allow the ladies to go first. Yeah.
Well, I guess I can start. Thank you so much, Kuratulen, for that amazing and lovely interview. And good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone again, depending on which part of the world you are. And to kind of like to give a brief of a background about my climate journey and how I got into this movement, how I, as a youth, became so passionate about climate justice at a young age. I grew up most of my life in the Philippines, and it's also one of the most vulnerable countries around the world to the effects of climate change. And growing up, I saw the devastating effects of the climate crisis, which was evident each year through the landslides, through the tropical cyclones, and through the flash floods, with which really affected the vulnerable communities, especially those that are living in extreme poverty, the indigenous groups, and literally people who don't have the means to, I would say, save or build like a good house, to be in a good community. And growing up while also helping these communities through relief initiatives, I learned to accept these effects as a part of the norm. However, when I moved to the United States 3 years ago to pursue my undergraduate, I learned that this was not normal. I attended the Climate Reality Project Leadership Corps training. There, I learned the hard facts about the climate crisis, the science behind it, and knew that there is still hope for the future. That these communities who are losing their properties, their goods, and the things, their basic needs each year, that there's still hope for them. So that's where I decided to go on this journey and really commit myself to amplifying their voices, especially for indigenous communities. And that's how I got started with Project Pusaka. And since then, I've been so involved with the indigenous community in the Philippines, teaching them permaculture, educating them with that, because of course, as indigenous groups, they rely a lot on traditional sources of living, like fishing, like farming, and these type of things are greatly affected by the climate crisis because of the changing temperatures. So what we did is we created, or we educated them with the basic philosophies of permaculture. And right now we're still at pause because of the pandemic, and it's been so hard to really gather all the volunteers, because there's like one problem that's more important than what they're currently facing right now, and that's the coronavirus. But when we reconvene, like in the next couple of weeks, I would say, or months, we will be starting to create this permaculture garden, which they will grow their own food. And after that, in 6 months, we will also be creating like a sort of like a business for them, so that they can, I would say, make money, as opposed to finding jobs, but also just kind of like be there in their community and strengthen their relationships.
Thank you very much, Kazaya. May I request Suzanne now, since...
Hello. It's so wonderful to be here with everybody. I'm looking at the stream and there's viewers from all over the world. So it really means a lot to be here and to just share my climate journey with you all. As we mentioned earlier, I'm an event producer, and so I create these temporary experiences for people to enjoy, to learn, to gather, to be inspired. Let's rewind a little bit. I grew up in Florida. I'm here in the United States, in Washington, D.C. right now, but Florida is a very tropical state, and my family are citrus farmers. And I grew up knowing what it took to make one glass of orange juice. You know, your hands get dirty. It's hard work to enjoy that one glass of orange juice. And I started noticing at my events, maybe about 15 years ago, that there was just so much waste. There was a disconnect between the value of those resources and the keeping the guests happy. And I was noticing there was a disconnect in the scheduling as well. I would notice banquet staff would be filling up these beautiful buffets of croissants and baked breads and orange juices, and then all the guests would go into their plenary room. And I'm sure you have all seen this before. And then the guests would go in, and then they would come through and dump everything in the trash, pour out the orange juice, dump the croissants in the trash can. And I was devastated by that. And I thought, okay, there's got to be something. There's a disconnect here. And at that time, I started reading everything I could, World Bank reports about the global food crisis. And again, this is about 15 years ago. And so it became my passion to amplify the voices of other planners to really do something about the food waste and the excesses that we're seeing in our events. Again, I joined committees, I wrote reports, really dug into the science behind that. And then also started thinking about the psychology behind this. Like, what is it about us humans that, we have to have it look a certain way? And so ever since then, I've been really focusing on food waste and sustainability in events and how we can manage our processes better, because honestly, it's just we're creatures of habit and we have to change. And that's really, really hard as you get older. And that's why it's so important for me to see so many young people here gathered, wanting to learn about things, doing what you can. They say youth is wasted on the young, but you guys have to work with us older generations because you have to inspire us, but we can also teach you our wisdom and help make things happen. So we need to inspire and challenge each other, learn from us, and learn everything you can. And joining programs like the Climate Reality Leaders Program is really important, like they mentioned earlier, because you can learn about the science behind it and really speak to the why when people do challenge you about, well, yeah, I want my takeaway grab and go plastic water bottles, but there's other ways to do that. Learn everything you can about science, study science, figure out new ways of doing things. And ideas come from all different angles. So that's why it's really important to have this intergenerational conversation. So I really appreciate that. And then one final thing, it's up to all of us. We can use our spending power to make responsible choices. If we're going to call ourselves sustainability leaders, we really do need to walk the talk in all different angles. So really, be responsible with your purchases and what's around you. So in the meantime, that's my message, and that's what I work with the Sustainable Event Alliance also to help train other event professionals and processes and learn about different suppliers who are doing the right thing. So anyway, thank you all for having me here. I really appreciate this conversation, and I look forward to doing wonderful things with all of you together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. May I please request Dr. Miroslav Polz to introduce himself and tell the audience about your projects.
Sure.
Hello, Karatulain. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Austria. My name is Miroslav Polz. I'm with the International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges. Here you see our locations on the global map in the center of Europe. And our organization has the mission to empower everyone, everywhere to take climate action. And in this context, we are delighted and grateful for having the chance to participate in this session. So the topic of this session is the journey to climate justice and the role of young people in the movement. And my message here is that we have the world as it is, with many inequalities, injustices, as also Mr. Mahanasa from UN Department for Global Communication said at the opening plenary of this event. And now there comes climate change as a big disruptive force, which challenges all our societal structures. And the question is whether at the end of this process, there will be justice and if there will be the opportunity for a good life for all people around the world. And my answer is that it will not come automatically. We have to strive for it, we have to build it, we have to fight for it. And it is the grassroots level, is the local level, the individual and our local communities where change can happen. And young people are the pathfinders towards a better world. And here, my message is in this context, on this journey towards climate justice, that the United Nations system is somehow the platform, the stage, the forum where young people can very effectively and with a systemic impact fight for justice and intergenerational equity and for more ambitious and more effective climate action. And the second message, so the first message, again, it's the UN system, and therefore also today's conference from the Generation Next Voice of Youth initiative, which is somehow working with Glotcha Global Challenges Foundation, our sister organization in the US, is really doing great work, a great job in educating young people about the UN system, how it is structured, how does it function, who are the people. And then really this builds the bridges, this opens up doors for young people to really co-shape the future towards climate justice in the context of the UN system. And the second message that I want to convey here is that young people need empowerment. One example is this conference, of course, and in general, knowledge is also a very important element of empowerment. Suzanne has mentioned it already, and the Climate Reality Project is doing a great job in this field. And I'm sharing now here also for your information, the link to the project Action for Climate Support. That's the ACE-AT project homepage, Action for Climate Empowerment project homepage, where the Austrian government has initiated the rethinking and reorganization of Action for Climate Empowerment within the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. My organization is involved there, and we are developing concrete initiatives and doing webinars and concrete resource mobilization for empowering young people with knowledge, but also with technology and with institutional support. And one of our most high potential or concrete initiatives is now Digital Art for Climate, an initiative that uses blockchain technology to mobilize resources and to invite artists to contribute to climate action empowerment, creating non-fungible tokens, digital collectibles from this artwork, and selling it and channeling this revenues to youth climate action empowerment. And these are some examples of how we see this journey to climate justice, in which young people play a very important role, but there's a need for intergenerational cooperation and also institutional support. And here my organization, IAI Glotcha, aims to be one of the global leaders in this field, and happy to have also Kuratulain as one of our team members chairing these sessions. We are happy and proud of this.
Thank you so much, Miro, for introducing all the wonderful initiatives that Glotcha is working on, and thank you so much for always being very supportive. I would like to invite Kevin. I think I see you next on my screen. I would like to invite Kevin now
Hello,
to
everyone.
introduce himself.
Thank you so much, Tejadni. I hope I got that correct. And congratulations for this amazing conference. It is really nice to see that very many young people are interested in being part of these dialogues, and taking such initiatives is greatly appreciated, and obviously the right step towards achieving climate justice. My name is Kevin Luzalu. I am from Kenya, and I am the co-founder of the Kenyan Youth Biodiversity Network. We started the network back in 2017 as a frustrated response to increased climate, the impact of climate inequalities here in Kenya, and as we have observed over the years across the planet, more so pronounced in the global south. And as the previous speakers mentioned, climate change or climate injustice has caused unequal impact on communities who are affected by floods. We're talking about droughts and all the impacts that come with climate change. And so the Kenyan Youth Biodiversity Network seeks to empower young people from Kenya to take innovative action towards upholding human rights, towards holding corporates responsible, and towards raising the voices of young people in policy spaces, and lastly, towards advocating for ethical practices that can guide us as a society towards the right direction. We are talking about things like sustainable production and consumption. I come from a country which depends heavily on, I would say, climate-driven industries, and I'm talking about agriculture and tourism. And in the recent years, it's been evident that the impact of climate change on these two sectors is even more pronounced, which causes disproportionate impact to people who live more so in the semi-arid areas and local areas. And so as young people, we are seeking to have our voices more pronounced in the policy spaces. And one of the areas we are engaging in this is through the UN Convention on Biological Diversity. And as most of you know, this last year, which is 2020, was supposed to be a big year because the Conference of Parties for the CBD, the COP15, was supposed to happen. It didn't happen, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, and it is a hope that it will happen this year. So we have been mobilizing young people at the grassroots level to seek their perspectives and contribute policy briefs, position papers, and we even have our priority areas that will inform our discussion and that will inform what young people, will inform policymakers on what young people really want in the next framework of the CBD, UN CBD, so that we see that the current challenges that are resulting in unequal climate change impacts are hopefully addressed, because we believe that young people and the future generations are the major victims of climate change, and we need to learn from the historical injustices and try and right the wrongs of our senior members of the society. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin. Molu, please, the stage is yours.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the International Youth Conference for having me here today. What a great panel and what a timely discussion. I'll be watching the conference today and all weekend to learn from all the amazing work young leaders around the world are doing to tackle climate change. It's great to see in the chat that we have folks from all over the world that are watching. I'm quite excited to discuss my journey in working in the nexus of climate change, climate justice, sustainability, and transportation. First, I earned my Bachelor's of Arts from Westchester University in Pennsylvania in political science and international relations. And my goal was to work in peace and security in African countries. And there are two reasons why I wanted to work in peace and security. And one was because when I was younger, I had the opportunity to travel around Africa, and I lived in, I'm originally from the Gambia, West Africa. So I had a lot of classmates that were from Sierra Leone and Liberia, and they discussed a lot of the issues that were happening in their countries, such as the civil war, which was really heartbreaking. So I was like, this is something that we have to do something about. And the second reason was while I was graduating for my BA degree, I did a project to study why South Africa did not have a civil war, being that they had apartheid. Mandela was in jail. Nelson Mandela was in jail for 27 years. And other countries such as Liberia and Sierra Leone went through horrific civil wars in which many people died. It degraded their environment, and environmental reasons were actually some of the reasons why some of those wars happened. So why did that happen? So that got me really involved in in peace and security and things of that nature. But then I had an opportunity to work for an environmental organization that was based at the United Nations. It was an NGO in general consultative status with the United Nations, promoting environmental health and literacy. They work with the United Nations Economic and Social Council, as well as back then it was called the Department of Public Information, now Global Communications. And I assisted the CEO in all functional and organizational matters. But the best work that I did and the most that I learned came from information management, in which I had to go to United Nations expert briefings related to global environment, and study that, learn it, and put out reports on what was happening, as well as manage conferences and seminars on what was going on. At this time, I was also elected to be the secretary of the NGO Committee on Sustainable Development, in which I work with Hawa Jallo, who works for the UN, I think, Global Communications, so they call it now. But the head of the committee was Amargo Lazaro, and I learned so much from all the folks that were around, and I was quite young at that point. But one thing that I realized was that I didn't know the physical dimensions of sustainability and environmental justice itself. So then I enrolled to get my master's at Columbia University, Columbia University's Earth Institute, to study sustainability management. One of the last projects I did was we tried to look at at counties in New York State on how to provide electric vehicle ride sharing, and community solar to low-income populations and senior citizens. Right. So we have these really great environmental issues, how we can reduce emissions and congestion and provide sustainable energy. But some of these resources don't always go to low-income populations. They don't always go to senior citizens, and they don't always go to the folks that are the most vulnerable. So that's what that's the project that we did. How do we bring these items to them? And at the end of the project, we realized, funding is needed. You need to fund these projects in these low-income communities so they can have the resources. But currently, I work for ICF, which is a global advisory and consulting firm. We're not your typical consultants. We combine unmatched expertise with cutting-edge engagement capabilities to help solve our clients' most complex projects and problems. So some of the fields that we work in include disaster risk management, management, education, energy, environment, healthcare, transportation, which is what I do, international development, climate and resiliency, and program implementation. I specifically work on the climate, energy, and transportation team. And the work I do is I try to help organizations learn about the opportunities that they have to assist their employees from folks that drive single occupancy vehicles every day, which is driving alone in your car, to more sustainable modes of transportation, such as carpooling, van pooling, public transportation, biking, walking, teleworking, which we're all doing now, and all these different things, right? So how do you put all these things together and help folks in your communities get these opportunities? We also are strong believers, and we also reach out to low and middle income communities to provide these resources as well, because they also need to make sure that they have these opportunities. And just to finish up, most of my work falls on the SDG 11, which is Sustainable Communities and Sustainable Cities, as well as SDG 13, Climate Action. Looking forward to hearing your questions. I'll try to keep it short from the audience. And yeah, thank you again to the International Youth Conference for having me today. Excited to join this conversation.
Thank you very much, all the panelists, for that wonderful introduction. And all of you are working, in the climate justice space, in some way or the other. So, from your experience, the first question that I want to ask you is, how would you say that the climate injustice is impacting young people specifically? And because of the planet that the young people are inheriting from the older generations, what does this mean? What does climate injustice mean for young people?
I can go since I just is that okay? Yeah, I mean, I think one way the climate injustice is affecting young people, I can tell somewhat of my own story is so when I first moved to New York, I lived in the South Bronx, and it was in around 2012, 2013. And one thing you saw in the city is, and it started before I moved, of course, but there were many of these bike sharing programs everywhere in New York, all right? They were in Manhattan. You can take a bike, you could ride, and this provided access to transportation for many communities. Where wasn't it available? It wasn't available in the Bronx, right? So that means if someone had to get out of the Bronx, they had to take the transit. Or what if transit wasn't working for them at that point? What if they wanted to do, just ride around their bike, right? We know biking is really good for your health, and it's also good to get you from point A to point B. So many of the young people that were living in the Bronx, which is one of the most impoverished places in the United States, had no access to this, right? So sometimes what we do is we launch these programs and we launch these initiatives without hitting the folks that are the most vulnerable populations. But one good thing that cities are doing and companies are doing is that when they launch these programs, they reevaluate and they actually check what they're doing and they try to solve it. So now if you go to the Bronx, you will see bikes everywhere. They have city bikes in the South Bronx. They're all over the place because of work that folks are doing. In addition, you will be having scooters soon, and you'll be having like sustainable transportation options so young people can actually travel from point A to point B. This includes access to employment. This includes access to food, access to resources, access to multiple things that they would not have had if they don't have these transportation accesses. So cities when they first start, sometimes it doesn't go the best, but then they do reevaluate and check themselves and launch these programs that have been helping communities around the country, especially folks that are in the Bronx. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to jump in?
I guess I can go. So, in regards to how, like from the youth perspective, and in regards to how the climate crisis is affecting the youth, and having worked with a lot of youth and also mentored students at the Climate Reality Leadership Corps training, one thing that really, really stood out to me is that, for the past year, news about the climate crisis is like hitting headlines. So there's New York Times, and it's getting more awareness. And this increase in awareness is affecting the mental health of a lot of youth. And this is called eco-anxiety. Or climate anxiety. And, statistics have shown that this climate anxiety among teens is increasing, and 50%, 57% of teens in the US in itself is experiencing this eco-anxiety, while 43% feel that, you know, this is all hopeless. I know that it's something that isn't really talked about because it goes under the jurisdiction of mental health. But one of the things that I really want to emphasize is that, you know, eco-anxiety shows the intersectionality of these problems. Like when the pandemic hit, a lot of teenagers around the world experience mental health issues, and, you know, getting more awareness of what is happening around the world, especially about climate change, is adding to the mental health issues that they're facing. And so I would say that, and I also got this from the Climate Reality Leadership Training, and if you all are watching, you should definitely get trained. It's such an amazing experience. One of the climate scientists said that the best cure to climate anxiety is meaningful action. And this is where institutions come. Educational institutions, as we know, interacts with a lot of the students. And this is where their role of connecting these students to local initiatives and getting them involved in the community. Because once they see their involvement, they see the impact that they're creating in their local community, which in turn instills hope and also a better vision for a better future.
Wow, I'm so inspired by my fellow panelists. So thank you for those words, and I couldn't agree with you more about the anxiety that this is causing the youth, because it's also who are you putting the blame on unless you actually have a call to action. So, you know, we're all responsible for our planet, and we all need to respect and manage our choices respectfully, and that means challenging your local leaders. You know, get those bike share programs in your neighborhoods. Absolutely. Don't destroy parks to build a building. No, don't do that. Use your voices to amplify these injustices that you see and come up with solutions, because, you know, one hand, there's a need for one thing, but there's also got to be a respectful way to satisfy all those needs, so you're not causing more injustices, and you're able to solve problems in a way that is going to be beneficial to not only all the people that are in the community, but also the environment that all of these choices affect. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. And this is, like, you really pointed it out in the right direction, that, you know, we need to give young people a seat at the table also when it comes to, you know, policy formulation and, you know, mobilizing them for, you know, accountability framework. So Miro and Kevin, because, you know, you work with young people and, you know, at the grassroots level, and, you know, you mobilize them to work towards, you know, policy formulation. Can you weigh in on that? How can we, you know, involve young people more? How can we, you know, empower them to hold their leaders accountable on any level?
Yeah, thank you. So,
okay, please.
Let's go first, Doctor.
No, Kevin, you first.
Thank you. So, climate change and climate injustice is multidimensional, and the impact on young people is the same. We can talk about climate injustice from the aspect of human rights. We can talk about it from the gender perspective, and so many health and so many other perspectives. On the aspect of human rights, young people here have the innate right to inherit a planet that's rich, planet that is productive, a planet that is free from all the elements that we have introduced today that are posing great danger to the continued existence of humankind. And through this, young people have openly expressed their frustrations. We have seen climate strikes. We have seen campaigns For example, the Kenya Youth Biodiversity Network is currently running a campaign called Stop the Same, which is calling on our leaders here in Kenya to stop doing the same things the same way, year in, year out, and expecting different results. Last month, we took to the streets to express this frustration, but there's more that needs to be done. We've started our series of intergenerational dialogues where we're calling various leaders, both at the grassroots level and from the national governments, to our consultation meetings, sitting down with them, talking about the priorities of young people, what young people want, and how we can work together to integrate these actions so that we have an all-inclusive approach in our policy frameworks. And one of the areas is having the voices of young people more pronounced in the country position, in the country strategies, so that when we start the implementation of the strategies, young people know that they are part of it, they own the process, and it leads us to somewhere. Another thing that the climate injustice has contributed to is the widened gender inclusion gap, where young women and girls are affected disproportionately compared to the counterparts. And another thing is, of course, digital marginalization. Last year, the Global Youth Biodiversity Network did a survey of young people and how the current zoonotic pandemic, if I can call it that way, which is somehow also linked to climate change, has affected them. And one of the things is that meetings like this one, the one we're having, the conference like this one, most young people who are at the grassroots level, who are in the most remote areas, are not able to benefit from the insights that our panelists here, our able panelists here are sharing. And some of this ineffectiveness have resulted due to digital inequalities between people, communities, the global north, the global south, and young people are not able, most of them here in the global south are not able to afford the extensive or the advanced technological capabilities that can enable them to effectively participate in some of these climate dialogues that we are having online. And so to move forward is to, first of all, ensure that there's a need to ensure that existing gaps are closed. If we have to move our dialogues, our climate dialogues online, then we need to find ways to ensure that grassroots young people are also part of these dialogues. Otherwise, we'll be formulating roadmaps where a section of young people are part of it and are effectively contributing to it, but a larger section of it have no idea about what's happening and are not part of it. And it is this reason, or such mistakes, are part of the reasons why we are in the current climate crisis, where certain proportion of the community is left behind when another proportion of the community is discussing climate agenda. And so it's really critical that we consider how we're gonna bring young women, girls, marginalized youth to these dialogues moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations, Kevin. Yeah, you have really touched very important points. Excellent. Because I also wanted to speak about the potentials of digital innovation for youth participation in decision making about the common good on the local level and also UN processes. But as you said, it's this digital marginalization and this lack of access to these technologies and to this internet services, that this is a systemic problem, and it really hinders just representation in this decision making. And therefore also our organization is working in this field. And I've had just this week conversation with the Action for Climate Empowerment focal point from Ghana, and we are planning to work in this field on really developing the mechanisms to bring digital innovation, infrastructure, connectivity for climate action, public participation hubs in Africa and especially in Ghana to to these places and to these disadvantaged young people so that they can contribute, because there is a lot of creativity, entrepreneurial spirit and everything, but it needs enabling factors. And for this, we need a global, local, enabling ecosystem which brings global resources and access to technology and knowledge and funding and everything to use also in African contexts or other places where they might not have it. And the other point you mentioned is about gender, especially the that in the climate change crisis that we are in has also a strong gender dimension, and that young women and women in general disproportionately more affected and really having to suffer more, while they have huge potentials also to contribute on the fight of this and somehow adapting and mitigating these climate change effects. And so the gender dimension and the digital and technology dimension are essential here, and global community needs to work with local communities to empower youth. That's our message, and that's what we are working on. And I expect you will see within the next few months great progress there from our side.
Thank you so much, and thank you for presenting the wide spectrum of climate injustice and how it is actually racial injustice and gender injustice and everything. And so one thing that we've seen on grassroots level is that all these young people, once they see that there is a problem in their community, they try to come up with different innovative solutions. And there are lots of social entrepreneurs and ecopreneurs out there who are working in the energy space, who are working in waste management, on innovative food solutions and everything. My question to all you panelists is that how can we ensure that we help them do their work more efficiently? How can we build their capacity so that they can help us achieve climate goals?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. It's just get the word out. As an entrepreneur myself, if I see a good idea or a good project or a good product, I'm going to support that. You've got to amplify your voice, spread it, talk to people, use the media that you have to make sure everybody knows the good that you're doing. There's a million great ideas out there, and very few of them get the notice, not only on a local, worldwide level, but really, if you have a great idea, share it. There's others that have that idea to get as well. Join together. You're stronger together. We all know a lot about something, but together we know a lot about everything. So really join with others, share your voices, and get the message out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, for really, really emphasizing the importance of collaboration. And I'd like to also share that one of the things that I really learned being the partnerships coordinator for the 16th United Nations Climate Change Conference of Youth is that, when we work together collaboratively, I know that there's a notion when it comes to young climate activists, there's like that anger, that frustration. I know someone kind of like mentioned that here. But for me, one of the things that is very, very important that we veer away from is the notion of, being angry and canceling out someone just because, they did something bad for the environment. For me specifically, one of the biggest challenges that we're currently facing right now in fighting for climate justice is putting up walls just because we do not work with them, putting up walls because we want them to to change immediately, putting up walls because we don't want to negotiate. We don't want to have that conversation. And this is where the importance of conversation comes from, amplifying the voices of people, sharing stories. I know Kuratulan knows the importance of, sharing stories. It moves people, it inspires people. And, in a way, if we really want to achieve climate justice and promote sustainability initiatives, we have to work together. We have to work with banks. We have to work with these industries that are, that did a lot of impact in the environment, because in a way, we can't just close their businesses tomorrow. We cannot just say, hey, we want you to stop by the end of 2 years, but we have to negotiate with them. We have to have that conversation. So that's just one of the things that I want to emphasize.
Wow, what an amazing, amazing speech. Amazing, amazing speech. It's Kazia, right? Kazia. Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. That is 100% true. And I think that's one of the things that we learned during the pandemic, that we do need many of the companies that already are in existence, and we need to work with them to assist them in reducing their emissions. In every possible way. So yeah, thank you for what you just said, and I want to agree and also add on to what you said. And I think for many of the young people that are listening from around the world, there's many different ways that you can participate. There are folks that work on the grassroots level in rural areas. There are folks that are going to work in government. There are folks that are going to work in private companies. There are folks that are going to work with companies that are already some of the biggest polluters. But that's where you're needed to assist internally and externally to reduce emissions around the world. So to the folks that are listening and watching, the young folks around the world, know that there is no one way or one solution. It has to be tackled in every single different way. That's why the Sustainable Development Goals are also important, because what they do is they tackle all the issues and initiatives in a wholesome way, right? So it's not one goal; it's 17 different goals. And the last goal is partnerships, because that's what we need. We need to partner with private companies, public companies, local governments, NGOs, grassroots level, and I think once we figure that out, we will get to the journey of changing, the climate discussion very well. So, but we're already on that way. So, but yeah, thank you. That's it.
Yeah, there are a number of ways that young people could be empowered to achieve the SDGs, the sustainable goals, and also leverage on to reduce climate injustices. And one of the ways is to bank on the youth. I'm calling upon stakeholders to bank on the young people. Young people have so much brilliant minds and innovations. Give them the social capital, give them the financial support, but also for our governments to give an enabling environment for youth-led innovations and startups to live beyond their vision, because some of the things that bring down climate startups are things like high taxes. So if we could give tax holidays to climate startups, youth-led startups, and businesses, this environment could enable their startups to provide sustainable solutions to the challenges that we are facing. Also, we need to realize regional and national climate accelerator and incubation hubs that empower our young people and nurture their startups so that they can really kick off. And also, we need to decentralize the knowledge, give out the statistics, give out the figures, give out the data for young people to use. No one should have the ownership of specific data, and now you're holding the data. Please decentralize that, give out the young people, let them leverage on the statistics to provide sustainable solution and to our climate challenges. Also, traditional knowledge, our senior generations, please share with these young people. But most importantly, as a society, we need to decolonize conservation. Most of the models that we are using right now need a change. So if young people come up with sustainable models that are matching the realities of today, we need to accept and embrace those ideas, and that will help us to decolonize our conservation models and foster new models that will address the current climate realities. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Miro, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so this the initial question was how to support this entrepreneurial activity of youth, and Susanne said yes, young people should get the word out and present themselves. And where we see the systemic challenge is that there are solutions and entrepreneurial young people, micro entrepreneurs on the local level, and there are resources on the global level. And there is no connection between these two levels. And therefore, we are working on an climate action impact marketplace, also in the context of the Action for Climate Empowerment program, where within the process, especially young people, the youth constituency has raised this issue of a need of an ACE marketplace, Action for Climate Empowerment marketplace, where those who implement projects can present their initiative and the expected impacts on a platform, and that the resource holders can see it, can choose it, and also that there is verification and reporting and evaluation of everything, and that such a mechanism is needed. And here again, coming to this digital innovation topic, now with these new technologies, emerging technologies like blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, there are really very sophisticated marketplaces for climate action impact possible. And there we need to channel our attention to, because with these new technologies, the transaction costs for the global transfer of impact and incentives is possible with low transaction costs. And this is coming, and it will also support other SDGs, as Madhu has rightly said. There are 17 SDGs, and all are more or less equally important because it's a system that works together. Yeah, so a marketplace which will empower or enable micro entrepreneurship on these topics. This is a systemic need, and we are working again on this. And hoping not to promise too much, but we are optimistic that we will deliver good results.
Thank you very much. We have just the last couple of minutes to wrap up the session. So if there is any word of advice that you have for young people who want to, come into this space, or, want to become climate activists, or want to start any venture, any word of advice from any of you?
To my fellow young people, one of the things that I really want to say is we should break down the notion of cancel culture, because, and this is, kind of defined as, if you're not doing a project about climate justice, you're not making an impact for the planet. But at the end of the day, if we really want to achieve climate justice, it is through the small increments towards living a sustainable lifestyle. It is where, at the end, it is where we achieve it. And, the small steps that you take, whether it is shopping locally, whether it is, not eating meat 2 times a day, once you collectively, or once you add that up at the end of the year, your carbon emissions or your carbon footprint actually lowers down. So do not underestimate your individual capacity in promoting climate justice. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I'll make this real quick. And I agree, everything you said. First of all, get involved with your local legislation. Here I am in Washington, D.C. It's all around us. But you've got to work with your legislators to make change. That's how change will happen, through laws and regulations. So understand what those are, get involved. And also, together we're stronger. You can have 10 people make one step forward, or one person take one step forward. Do it all together, join together, and we can all make an impact. So thank you.
I'll just keep it very short as well. Thank you again for having us all here today. To all the young people that are watching, just know that there are all the spaces, from government to private sector to local grassroots to protest, and every single step matters, right? So all of those, whichever opportunity you have to work in those spaces, work with them and work with people, like Azia said. So if someone is, doing something that you see that is not good for the climate, work with them. Try to make that a teachable moment so they can try to change what they're doing. So it's a partnership process. But yeah, I will end there. Thank you.
Yeah, from me, I just would like to tell young people that we are the generation of the day, and the future generations depend on us. And isolated efforts are not as meaningful to address the current global climate crisis as working together. So find a group, share success stories. Don't be pinned down. Be bold, and we will get there. Thank you.
And also my last remarks, echoing what my esteemed colleagues have said. So stand up, really build partnerships among with other youth groups and also with generations that went the path before you, and really fight for climate justice. It is a fight that is worth the effort. It's building and safeguarding the future for yourself, for us, and for future generations.
Thank you all so very much. Just last words from me. Yes, collaboration is very important. And somebody once told me that the people who you are looking for are also looking for you. So, reach out to, if you want a mentor, just reach out to them. That's just drop a message. And that is exactly what it takes in, this virtual world. Uh, and also, keep in touch with us. Like, we are trying to, get information on all you young change makers who are working in these spaces. So whatever you're doing in your communities, let us know, and we will also try to find ways to do more things for you, bring you more mentors and other opportunities. Thank you so very much for all the panelists, for being here, for giving your time. Some of you really came through at the 11th hour, and we are really grateful and honored with your presence. Thank you very much, and thank you all the young people who participated in this discussion.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Take care.